Welcome to the Unofficial After Show of Mike from COT. And the coming biblical storm. Let's take another deep dive and make sense of Mike's words.
This is a forecast. Never quite did this before with you guys, but you should already know about the storm. Next week, Wednesday and Thursday, has about a 82% probability that it will drench Florida again. As far as wind speeds and everything else, nobody knows yet. There's a high-pressure system in the Midwest. It may not be enough to cause the storm to change its path. So right now, it looks like Wednesday or Thursday, you guys could get several inches of rain in Florida, just like the last hurricane. It could be a tropical storm, could be a hurricane, could be a tropical depression, something of that nature. But you will probably, 82% chance you'll get something. All right? That's one forecast with the weather for Florida. What you may not know, I'm going to give you a different type of forecast. All of you know, or you should know, about Genesis 6. Correct? All of you should. Genesis 6. Genesis 6 had to deal with some of the rebellious angels who took women on the earth. You've heard this story a million times. Right? All of you know about that. What you may not know about is the time limit threshold that they were given. That time limit is up. And we'll talk more about that, but that's part of the forecast. I'll say it again. That time limit is up. It's up. Now, the book of Enoch comes into play in this, and so do quite a few other texts. No, we're not talking about these, the judgment day. No, not yet. A different type of storm is coming. It's on its way. And so you have, well, I personally, I hope that everything in the government could set up rather quickly. I do. I think they know what they are facing. I think they know that they can't afford any missteps in this one, right? You guys live in the days where you're going to experience in the short term. When I say short term, I mean the super short term. You're going to start facing some irritations you've not faced before. And when I say irritations, I mean things that will try you by way of your dreams. When you're awake, you sleep, doesn't matter. But the world itself is about to be inundated with a few things, right? Things we're not used to. And why it may seem a little off kilter right now, it is quite the, it's something you really need to consider, right? So this forecast, what I'm about to tell you, is quite obvious. That we all knew that someday we'd be dealing with great opposition, unconventional opposition, right? Unconventional opposition. And I'm not talking about militaries and things like that, no. I'm talking about something else that's going to upend the war machine in a big way. In a big way. I know that many people, right, have never entertained this. But the sad part about it is this, it's already starting to happen to certain people. It's starting to become intrusive already. It's almost like nothing is waiting. Things are becoming quite bold, right? Quite bold. And it's going to be a problem. Now, I'm not going to say they won't, but I wouldn't expect any authoritative or combined word on this because the subject is just too taboo. And it would just unhinge too many people. But we know in the Bible during the end days, not at the very end where the judgment is, but before Christ comes back, we know some things take place. We know that before Jesus comes back, right? This world is going to be in a little bit of distress. This is before the return of Christ. In fact, I need Matthew 24 to help me with this, to put everything in context. And the reason why is because, listen, no one in their right mind would ever hope or wish for some of the events that we speculate about, right? Nobody in their right mind would ever hope for that. Well, hopefully they would not hope for that. Because in the Bible it says only a fool would ask for it, right? Nevertheless, we happen to be born in those days. And again, if a baby is born inside of a prison, and all they knew was the prison, they would not call it a prison. They would call it home. They would call it home. So I need Matthew to help me out with this. Christ gave us enough. He really did. I think it's a blessing. Things have not been disclosed too much. I really do. I think it's a blessing. And the reason why is because there's no way a person can function normally with a type of full disclosure. It's just not going to happen. That is held within the hands of certain individuals and groups. And it's a good thing they separated that security clearance from governmental security clearance, because right now, even the president, vice president, whoever, they don't have access to that. They have public security clearance. They're elected officials. They to date, now it may not be that well. I don't believe anybody can change that clearance category. They can't do that. There are a few levels above what any president would ever have. There are groups for very good reason that have cut that off. Let me go to Matthew 24 if you guys want to join me there. I'm going to read this quickly. Of course, in Matthew 24, the disciples asked the Lord 3 specific questions. 3, right? He sat upon the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming? This is very important. What will be the sign of thy coming? What will be the sign of thy coming? Right? So they wanted to know what? When will these things happen? Number 1, what's going to be the sign of your coming? Number 2, and of the end of the world. What's going to be the end of the world? Now remember, the sign of thy coming. That means if a sign of his coming has not been given, he's not coming. There's a sign that precedes him. So let me continue. He said, Jesus answered and said unto them. Now keep in mind, this was written 2,000 plus years ago. It was not written yesterday, 2,000 plus years ago. I know a lot of people like to put this off, and that's natural. But this was not written yesterday. This was 2,000 plus years ago. And Jesus answered and said unto them, who is he speaking to? His disciples. His disciples sat with him on the Mount of Olives privately. So he's not talking to a large group. He's not telling this to a large group. He's telling this to his disciples privately. That's something else very important you have to remember. Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. Now he's talking to his disciples privately. He's not talking to everybody else. He's talking to his disciples. He's very direct to his disciples. He says, And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass. They must happen. That's why listen, it doesn't mean sit back on your couch and relax. That's not what he's saying. He says, and you shall hear of wars, real wars where people die, right? Like the billions who have died in the past, and rumors of wars, more wars to come. You're going to hear of this. He said, see that ye be not troubled. Don't have a mindset like these things are not supposed to happen. They are supposed to happen. They are supposed to happen. All right? So keep that in your mind. They are supposed to happen. See that you be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass. They must take place, but the end is not yet. The end does not come with the wars. The wars will never cause the end. Are you starting to get it? The end is not yet. That is not the end of the world. Men fighting each other is not the end of the world. It must come to pass. Okay? You guys got that? For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Well, all this stuff began 2,000 plus years ago. It did not begin in the last 500 years. It began 2,000 plus years ago. That was the beginning of sorrows. Okay? See, if a person is born like right now, they were not born in World War I or II, so they don't know about it. To them, the world is this playground. To those who endure the war, it is a horrific place full of injustice. You see the difference. You see it. So forget about the beginning of sorrows. That happened a long time ago, and it continues to this day. Okay, that it started 2,000 years ago. 2,000 plus years ago. It continues unto this day. But mankind's wars will never end the world. Something else will, not mankind. Okay? All right? Now, stay with me. All these are the beginning of sorrows, Matthew 24:8. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Who is he talking to? His disciples. Jesus told those in Judea to flee into the mountains, not those in New York, not those in Texas, not those anywhere here. And indeed, they were taken up. They were. Just letting you know that. All right? Let's continue. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Now let me put this in perspective. He says, for nation is going to rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Who's hated of all nations for his name's sake? A nation. If you're hated of all nations for his name's sake, you're hated of all the nations. Listen, ye shall be hated of all nations. So all the world is going to hate you for the name of Jesus. This is a build-up. A build-up for his name's sake. So all those who operate by his name are going to be hated of all nations. What does this begin? 2,000 plus years ago. It already started. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and hate one another. You know, in 70 AD, that's exactly what happened. When Israel was disbanded, it was dispersed, it was destroyed, it was split, blown to, obliterated. That's what happened. They didn't get back together until 1948. So let's continue. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. So collectively, we have had many. This word offend, and then shall many be offended. Many will stumble. Stumble, that word offended is stumbled. Why will they stumble? Why will they err as far as doctrine? That's why Jesus came to them privately, to give them the compressed plan of the end days. And shall hate one another. Many shall be offended, shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Now, I want to put this in context. So he says, when the beginning of sorrows began 2,000 plus years ago, they were going to deliver you up to be afflicted. They did. To Caesar, they did. They delivered many up to be afflicted, and that never ended. Right? You guys remember Hitler. That's the same thing. They were delivered up to be afflicted. Same thing, so it continues. And he said, ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Right now, there are many people who hate the Jews. They have reared their ugly heads throughout this election. Throughout this entire election, you saw the true sentiment of people towards Christians. Let me clue you guys in on something of the hatred towards Christians you don't know about. Okay? I read some things from school teachers, lots of school teachers. I often take an interest in what our kids are being taught and from whom. Openly, this is what was said. It is an abomination that the GOP is going to rule this nation because they'll keep talking about Christ. Another one said, I hate that name, and I wish all of them would go hang themselves. And if they try to shove that junk down our kids' mouths, right, they'll do violent things. I'm not going to go any further. They hate Christ. This is what they said. They hate Christ, and to have that shoved down people's throats. People at this point in time, which is the future, should be able to be what they want to be. This is a true sentiment. And we're not talking about one or two people. Nope. Sorry. No. This is in your neighborhood too. Your neighborhood. And it gets worse. So the fact is you have a lot of people who hate Jesus. Do you know why? Don't try to figure that one out, but they do. And the schools have been fighting for your children for a long time. Not all teachers are bad. They're not. But the majority of them do not like Christ. They don't like his doctrine. They think Christianity ought to be abolished. They said it should not exist in the world we live in today. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't. All this will be uncovered, and people will gasp with their mouths hung open in disgust. This is a true sentiment, which means hatred is building far more than you know. Far more than you know. Let me continue. They deliver them up to be afflicted, right? They do, as they did in World War II too, and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another and hate one another. That's already happening. It's building. It's a buildup. And many false prophets shall arise. That's been happening for a long time. Not to beat around the bush, there have been many who have stood before congregations who did not love the Lord. They simply did what they did because it was a business. They got rich. They eventually told people they didn't love them, or they got caught in their affairs, or whatever they got caught in. That was the end of them. Pure and simple. And then many shall be offended, shall hate one another. Many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Because of iniquity shall abound, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That's already happened. We talked about love last night, about the washing of the feet. To take that, the lowest position among humanity, to lay down your own personal royalty for the sake of somebody else, to raise them up, to wash them clean, to have them make it, taking no thought of oneself. You don't see that too much. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. Now, because of this, you hear that. That's how we know it's continual. But he that endures, that means put up with. That does not mean those who dodge it. It doesn't mean those who run away from it. It means those who endure it, who take it, yet they keep their faith. They keep their belief in Christ, and they keep walking forward. That means, yes, you have been hurt. You're going to be hurt. See, there have been too many people, honestly. They have been thinking that in their lifetime, all the hurt, the pain, the anguish, all that's going to be taken away. Let me ask you something. Has it been taken away? No. You're overcoming it. The hurt, the pain, the anguish, the opposition is still coming to you, but you've overcome it. See, every time you go through some situation, you overcome something until you get to the point where you are now, and those things that used to knock you down, they can't knock you down anymore. They still happen, but they have no effect. Do you see what's been happening? So when somebody brand new comes into the fold, they're going to go through what you went through, except it does not affect you, but it will affect them. Now you can lift them up because you have experience. Now do you see how things are working? Do you see? Earth wants to never be a paradise throughout this process. Many people hoped it would, and they wanted Jesus to take it away. That's not what happened. The Lord has had you get a victory over all these things, which means to overcome it. It is of none effect to you. You see that? All right, let's continue. But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. Whoever does this, whoever endures until the end, whoever does not give up, Whoever does not faint, they're going to be saved. Why? Why? Because this is a promised process, a blessed process, not a cursed one, a blessed process. If it were not blessed, you would not be here. If it were to take you out, you would not be here. That would defeat the entire purpose. The purpose is that you get the victory over darkness, every level of darkness, as you continue to live your life. That's what the purpose is. That's why. That's why. Let me continue. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. It never said they had to believe. It said for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. Now that was a summary. Now he's about to go into detail. That was a summary of everything. You just read it right here. You just read the progressive steps of this process. You just read who is blessed in this process. You just saw the end of this process. It's for you to get the victory, or it would not exist at all. All right, let's continue. It says, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. He's telling them to run. He's getting very specific. Very specific. Let him which is on the housetop not come down and take anything out of his house. Let me pause. You know what that means? Do not get stuck by materialism. You know the movies where somebody says, ooh, I gotta save my photo album, and they never come back. Somebody who says, oh, I gotta go get my dog, and they never come back. Somebody who says, oh, I gotta go get this lamp, and they never come back. Jesus, for the first time, is telling them to run. You know what that means? The only time the Messiah would ever say to run is if God says run. And God will only say run when he has declared something he will not repent of. You guessed it, the indignation of the Most High. These be the days of vengeance. He will not turn away from it until he is fulfilled, until he finishes what he declared so many thousands of years ago. Let him which is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. You hear that? But woe unto them that are with child. Wait a minute. I thought the Lord was going to help everybody. These be the days of vengeance. This is the trial of trials. See, some of you don't realize how blessed you've been. You don't. That you're a Gentile. You have no idea. That you're not bound by this. You weren't born with that resistive thing in you that would cause you to not believe in Christ. They have to go through something. Because God declared it. He blinded them for a season. And he must do this before he restores their sight. Oh, but when they see, it's over. Do you hear me? It's over. Now let me continue. But pray ye that your flight not be in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Who is he talking to? He's talking to those who be in Judea. He's talking about their trip. He's talking about why he told them to run. So he says, don't go back to take anything out of your house. Pray that your flight not be in winter. Woe unto those that are with child, and to those who give suck in those days. If you have a little baby, woe unto you. He says, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. It's going to be the worst time there ever was. Daniel chapter 12 is talking about that very time. You'll be here in the U.S. or wherever you are. This is the indignation that happens specifically in Israel. Nations come against Israel. All nations do not come against Texas. All nations do not come against India or China. All nations will come against Israel. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. No flesh means no life. There should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Remember when the Lord said he's going to purge his vineyard? Remember when he said he's going to bring great trouble upon his land? God said this. He will bring great trouble upon his land. God said this. He will bring great trouble upon his land. That he will purge his vineyard. But he'll keep back a third. Remember that? And they will be washed. They will be purged. They will be made white. But there's going to be much murder and mayhem in that land. Better get ready for your eyes to see this. Because he has not come back yet. He's not come back. Not yet. He's telling you the steps within that summary he just gave you. And he has not come back yet. Why do you think in the Bible it says, that day shall not come, lest there come a falling away first, that man of perdition be revealed? The man of perdition must be revealed. He's the very one that sets up the abomination of desolation. He's the one that does it. Daniel chapter 11. We read that all the time. And arms shall stand on his part, and they collectively shall pollute the sanctuary of strength and take away the daily sacrifice. You will see it. Now, you're not going to be in Israel. You won't be there. But you will see it. You will see it. Let me continue. Then listen, and except those days should be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved before the elect's sake. Those days shall be shortened. The days are shortened by God's own mouth when he purges his own personal vineyard. He also said in another book, this is your homework, he said in another book that you would see it from a distance. You would see their suffering. And in fact, he said the whole world will see their sufferings. That's when the scoffers come. Oh, where's your Lord now? That's when the scoffers come. Where's your Lord now? When they're in trouble, that's when the scoffers come to scoff. Where's your Lord now? Where's your Lord now? Let's continue. Now remember, is this happening in New York City? No, the same way the Holocaust did not happen in New York City. It didn't happen in New York City. It didn't happen in Texas. No, that's not where it happened. It didn't happen in the USA. No, that's not where it happened. Let me continue to read. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, don't believe it. Why would he say don't believe it? Because he's not here yet. If anybody says, here he is, or there he is, don't believe it. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Now, wait a minute. See, a lot of people are looking for someone to show them, demonstrate who they are. Those would be the very ones that fall for the okie dokie. They're going to fall for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because they're not utilizing their internal confirmation. They're looking for external proof. And the only ones that will give that external proof and start working in the open like this are the false ones. And many will run to them. Anybody who's weak in the flesh is going to run to them, or faith is going to run to them. Anybody weak in the faith is going to run to them. And God is he's doing this on purpose. He designed it. He designed it. He already told us to walk by faith. He already told us, do not walk by sight. He already told us to be obedient. But people, they still look for the proof. They still look for the proof. My goodness. Let's continue to read. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. He's giving you an example. Listen, he just said he's not going to be in secret chambers. He's not going to be in the desert. He just said, for as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west. He said, for as. Come on now, stay with me. He said, for as lightning cometh out of the east and shineth unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. What does that mean? Everybody will be able to recognize the coming of the Son of Man. Everybody will be able to recognize. Have you ever went somewhere and you haven't seen somebody in a while, and you see their specific gait? You ever see that? And you say, oh, that's so-and-so. I haven't seen them in a long time. Because you can recognize how they're walking. You will recognize your Lord and Savior when that happens. You will not make a mistake. No one will have to guess. Everybody on earth will see it. Nobody will make a mistake. It is a recognition built into you. The same way you can point at something and say, that's a dog. That's a cat. That's a giraffe. That's a hippopotamus. That same type recognition that no one ever taught you, because you know of animals no one ever showed or taught you about. And that same way that people can recognize lightning from any location, so will you recognize the Son of Man. Remember also, he said, my sheep hear my voice, and a stranger they will not follow. But the ones who go in the secret chambers, the ones who go in the desert, the little groups, they're falling for the okie dokies. He's not coming back in secret. He's not coming back in some closet. He's not coming back just to one group of people. Every eye will see him. Isn't that what he said? Every eye will see him. All right, let's continue. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened. Let me go back. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For his lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. You know, back in that day, an eagle was only a predator. Do you know that? It was a predator, bird of prey, a feared bird of prey. Do you know that? Do you know that? It was a bird of prey. Only in modern times have they taken an eagle and somewhat, blew it up, lifted the thing up, made it majestic and a representation of peace. It wasn't that in the old days. It would kill the sheep and everything else. It was a predator. It would take children. It was a predator. It was a predator. So wheresoever the carcass is, what's a carcass? What is that? What is the carcass? What is he telling you about? He's telling you about Jerusalem again. He's doing it again. He's telling you about Jerusalem, specifically about Jerusalem. He just told us that the worst time in history was taking place. He just told us that. He just told us those in Judea flee into the mountains. He just told us don't go back to take anything out of your houses. For the worst, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say about this day? How bad is this day? Oh, he said it was bad. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to that time, no, nor ever shall be. It's going to be the worst time in history. You better believe it's going to be a lot of stuff there, right? For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Birds of prey surrounding Israel, reveling over what they did, the beast and his armies, his multiple armies. Immediately after the tribulation, this is Matthew 24:29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Now, you can also read this in the book of Isaiah. The same thing. You can also read that in Revelation. When you have all those together, the sun being dark and the moon is not giving her light, and the stars of heaven fall to earth. You can read all that in Revelation. They're primers. Actually, they're in 6 specific books. Primers. Right? And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man of heaven. There it is. Remember at the beginning they said, when are you coming back? What will be the sign of thy coming? They said. Number 2, the second question, what will be the sign of thy coming? Matthew 24:30, he says, and then after the tribulation of those days, not before but after, he said, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Now, you ought to highlight that. All the tribes of the earth mourn. That's another primer. We've never gone over this in COT, but that's a primer. You would not believe how many times that's in the Bible. And it gives you a remarkable pinpoint something I can't discuss right now. But then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. You see that? You see it? So let's rehearse this. Let me pause right here. So when you back up, the worst time on the earth has already happened. The beast has already been on earth. But here he comes, as promised. You know how some people say, well, the Lord doesn't come back until the very end. That's not true. That's not true. That's not what the Word of God says, right? You know how a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to be here for this trouble. That's not biblical either, though they may not be here because we're not promised tomorrow. There are a lot of Christians who are already gone. They're already with the Lord. How about that? Already with him. They beat us to the punch. We're the dodos left back here to finish our process. We're the ones that have to endure until the end, not the end of time, until the end of our race. You guys got that? To the end of your race. To the end of your race. There are billions of Christians who are already with the Lord. They're already finished their race. We're the ones still here. We have to endure and continue. If it's in your heart. Well, you don't have to do it, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to do it. There is nothing in the heavens or in the earth that can cause me to reject the sacrifice given for me. I will not dishonor the Lord's sacrifice. I did enough of that. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Now, let me stop. Why would all the tribes of the earth mourn? Don't you know? Come on now. Don't you know? Somebody knows out there. Why would the tribes of the earth mourn? Why would all the tribes of the earth mourn? Or he did not say the tribes of Israel. He said the tribes of the earth would mourn. Why? Why would they mourn? You want to know? Maybe we have an answer. Oh, you guessed it. From the Bible. We have an answer. So let's find something here, Rookie. You ready? You ready? Ready? And the heaven departed as a scroll when it scrolled together. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every freeman hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? You see that? Those are the hard-headed ones, the ones who rejected the sacrifice, the ones who refused to walk by faith. And indeed, they rejected Christ before men. They go hide themselves in the rocks. But one notable thing they said, for the great day of his wrath is come. See, because listen, here in Matthew, we just read about the ultimate victory for those who have endured. But it's not the world's victory. It's the world's doom. Do you hear me? When they see him, they're going to know that they sided with the ones who pierced him. And just in case you're wondering where that was read from, that's Revelation chapter 6, starting at verse 15, or 14, starting at verse 14. That is the sixth seal. Isn't that something? I love the word of the Lord. I do love it. I do love it. I do love it. See, because they saw him coming. How else would they know the wrath of the Lamb was coming? Because they saw him too. Because every eye will see him. That's why our Creator's Son, the word of the Creator coming back, you better believe we are engineered, built, born to recognize who our Maker is. So no one can deny it when they see it. And sure enough, when they do see it, they go hide. They say his wrath is coming. But that's not what the faithful will say. See, because in the Old Testament, it specifically says, the faithful will say, they'll stand up and say, he is who we waited for. They can cut that short. Because in the Hebrew, it's a much longer, sentence. That word waited, as it turns out, it means they occupied in the faith until he came. And when he comes, they'll stand up and point and say, he is who we waited for. That's why we endured until the end. Here's our victory. But the world can't say that. They're going to say, oh, shoot. Call up all the generals. Hide yourselves. Hide yourselves. That's what they're going to run. And it's not going to work. They're going to entomb themselves, most of them. Let me continue. It says, and he shall, now after this it says, and then shall appear the sign of Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. They shall see it, you see? That's why they hide themselves. And it says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. You know that silence in the heavens? Huh? You know about that silence in the heavens? See, I read something that says, let me see if I get this right. The four mighty angels who expelled the Nephilim will hold back both fires and winds, that nothing stir upon the earth, nor day nor night. What does it say, nor day nor night? It mentioned the winds and the fire, and everything stops. It stops until the tribes, the designated tribes, take flight. That's exactly what it says. Until the designated tribes take flight. So then all the four mighty angels, which includes Michael, the archangel Michael, right? Uriel, Gabriel, all those guys, they're going to hold back both fires and winds, that nothing stir up on the earth, not even day nor night. Nothing in flight will move, nothing moving on the ground will stir, nothing. The wind will not move, nothing will move until the designated tribes of the earth take flight. That's what it says. Satan hates that. He doesn't like it. He wants people to just have this grim picture of a Rambo type thing going on. Right? That's what he wants. No, this is a process. This is you being born. That's the day of your birth if you're still here on this earth. And I'm convinced those who already made it, they will come with him. They'll come with him. Let me continue though. It says, now learn the parable of the fig tree. So he's going into detail on something else. He's giving us a timing. He's giving us a timing. Ready? He's giving us a timing. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. Somebody wrote that down. You know they stole that in 1998. Do you guys know that? You know where that came from? Little Light 70, you know where that came from? That came from the Middle East in 1998. Do you know that? That's where it came from. And something that almost started World War III. Who would fight over some relics? Really? Anyway, let's continue. Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer's nigh. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Listen, nobody before you could have seen all these things. Verily, I say unto you, this is it. This generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Now, I know that some people miss this, so listen to me carefully. He just said, learn the parable of the fig tree, the mystery of the fig tree. Fig tree, when its branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer's nigh. You know the process of a tree yielding fruit. So with that same process, So likewise, when you shall see all these things, know it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, listen, here it is. Why didn't he say that generation? Why did he say this generation? What is he talking about? The generation back then? No. Listen to me. This generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. In the context of this reading, he just told something that will happen. And a generation will see it. The generation who sees all these things, that generation will not end until everything is fulfilled. Do you know who you are? Do you know what generation you're of? Because he just said that generation will not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Somebody said, I'm sorry, I copied and pasted. Don't worry about it. I got the whole thing. I got the imagery. So, to learn the parable of the fig tree, when you start to see these things come to, you know what it says in another book? It says, when you begin to see these things come to pass, then look up and lift up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. And he says, he's marking the generation that sees these things. Whatever generation that is, that specific generation will not end until all things be fulfilled. Do you guys know how long this generation is? Anybody? Anybody know how long a generation is? I know a lot of people go through the numerical system in this, but something happened in the New Testament. Listen carefully, listen carefully, listen carefully. A generation is the time it takes for a person to be born and have children. That's a generation. That's what a generation is. And you would notice by the count in the Old Testament and the count in the middle and some of the end books, the transitional books going into the new, the count of a generation alters. It is truly based on what I just told you. You have the means to go find out how long this is. Now, it still does not give you a precise anything, but it will tell you what season you're in. And it will let you know that this season, when it's up, everything is up. When this season is gone, everything is gone. And it just so happens you're born in that season. Why else do you think you were born with prophecy in you? Why else do you think you're drawn to Revelation? You're not you know what? Those who came before us were terrified of Revelation. They didn't want anything to do with Revelation. Why is it that our generation, that's all we look at? We know it's coming. We have no placement when the world is at peace. Why is it that most people are looking for absolute paradise and peace on the planet? But if it ever happened to us, if it ever happened to those who were called, right, us, we would have no placement. No placement whatsoever. Why do you think you were built with that in you? Can you deny that you don't have that in you? Can you deny that you're not drawn to the book of Revelation, that you're not drawn to prophecies? That you're not a stickler for the end times events? See, when they started saying doom and gloom, that was Satan's attempt to try and put you out. That was his attempt to try and shut you up. And when that happened, let me tell you what you never told anybody. Can I do that? You didn't tell anybody this. You didn't write about this. I'm going to tell you anyway. You tried it. You tried to be like every other Christian out there. You tried it. You didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew what you were doing, but you tried to be just like them. And it did not work out for you. You felt dead inside, didn't you? Huh? How many almost just died inside? How many? How many? You tried to be like every other Christian, to go through the routines and all that, and it wasn't working. You felt dead. You weren't alive. You didn't write about that one, did you? You didn't tell anybody that secret, did you? But that's what you did. You tried to emulate the church you saw. And you ended up almost losing yourself. You did. Because that's not your natural calling. You're almost like rebels. You can't let prophecy go. When everybody else forgets, you don't. When everybody else's mind is on something else, you're still thinking about it. When everybody else has let the New Testament go and let Revelation go and let the prophecies go, you're on them. You're always looking. You cannot help it. That's built into you. That's built in. That's been since you were since I was little. I did not see the world like everybody else did. I saw people saying, oh, it's going to be a beautiful place. You know what was going through my little head? They have no idea what they're talking about. I used to hear people say, oh, it's going to get better. And I was screaming inside, no, it isn't. It's going to get progressively worse and worse and worse and immoral. I said that at the age of 6. I told my parents it's going to get immoral until everything collapses. Till everything is gone. Till everything is consumed. And then everything will be consumed. I was 6 years old when I said that because I never saw the world like anybody else. While everybody else was jumping around doing all that stuff, I said, what are they doing? They need to prepare. That's when I was young. This world has gotten progressively worse. I mean worse. I mean bitterly worse. And every time they say, well, it's going to get better now, well, it gets twice as bad. Let's continue because we're not done. We're not done yet. We have to continue to read up. Listen, because now he's going to describe, he's answering everything. Now he's going to describe something. But of the day and hour knoweth no man. Notice he said the day or hour. He did not say season. Thank you, Lord. You didn't say season. He said day nor hour. You know how many people I've heard say, yeah, we can know the day. Somebody brought up a scripture one time. I heard people bring up this scripture, and I just heard it. I didn't say anything because they're excited too. They're trying to get it too. But I heard somebody say, yeah, we can know the exact day. For what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to know the exact day. I don't want to know the exact hour. I do not. Because every time I know the exact day and hour, it brings a falsehood out of me. Do you know that? So that's why I don't want it. I don't want to date like everybody else. I do not want to get ready at the last minute like I'm squeaky clean. That's false. That's false. I want it to come when I'm in my average day. That's truth. I don't want it to come when I expect it because I can get ready for it. No. I want it to catch me in my everyday life. So if I'm a hypocrite, I will never taint the heavens. How about that? I do not want to pollute that glorious place. I don't. So I don't want to know the day. I don't need to know the day nor the hour. I'll be prepared every single day of my life. And if I ever fail to prepare every single day of my life, then that's what I deserve. I deserve to be down there with the coals. So I don't want to know the day nor the hour. I don't need to know it because I'm ready right now. But of that day or hour knoweth no man, no not the angels in heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now let me pause real quick before everybody jumps to Zechariah's section. The Lord described, he gives us a context when he speaks. Right? Have you noticed? He'll tell us something and then he'll describe what he just said. He's good at that. So they documented this well. So let me tell to you, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying, and given into marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. In other words, it's going to be business as usual. You got that? You see that? See, everybody's looking for a sign. They are. I heard Jesus say it's a wicked generation that seeks for a sign. That means you have to know by proof. Again, there's that proof thing. There's a proof thing. But he didn't mention anything here, but he described the days of Noah, how humanity was, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. He said they were buying and selling, marrying, giving into marriage. He didn't mention anything else. Why? Why? Because the emphasis is here. He said, and knew not until the flood came. They knew nothing until the flood came. They did not know of their destruction until it actually came. That's what he's trying to get you to see, that the world will not, the average person is not going to know of his or her destruction until the event comes to take them.
Wow! Those were some moving words. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe and like the podcast.